spirit of my last video where I set myself some New Year's resolutions, I'm going to set myself some kind of book resolutions.
Say vlogs.
Last year was my first year of doing the Goodreads reading challenge thing, where you set yourself like a number of books that you want to read in a year, and then you see if you can do that. And I did. Mostly because when I moved house at the beginning of this month, I didn't have internet for 2 months, so all I did was read. It was a glorious time, if not chilly, because I had no heating. I have set myself another reading challenge this year, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, because I'm a lot busier than I used to be. I might have to, like, knock it down a bit and make it more achievable. So I thought I would set myself, like, a little sub-reading resolution, which is the 10 books that I absolutely definitely want to read this year. This was inspired by a video from someone else that I watched today, who I can't remember. Watched a lot of YouTube videos today, guys. I don't remember who it was. There'll be a link in the doobly-doo below. It'll be fine. So I thought I would just quickly run through the top 10 books that I want to read by the end of this year. First up is Red, A Natural History of the Redhead by Jackie Collins Harvey. Can you guess why I want to read this book? Apparently, my hair is the Marmite of genetics. The reason I want to read this book should be obvious. I have red hair. I love my red hair. It's my favourite physical feature about myself. But also, I am interested in it. So I just think it will be really interesting to just read more about the cultural significance of red hair and all of that stuff, really. Plus, I set myself the resolution to read more non-fiction this year, so red hair. Continuing the non-fiction vein is the book that I am currently reading, which is Bi, Notes for a Bisexual Revolution. It should also be obvious why I am interested in this book, seeing as I am bisexual. But I'm very intrigued by the idea of this book because it explores bisexuality as more than just a sexual orientation, but as more of a political identity, and it explores a lot of things to do with that. I'm not very far into it, although I am currently reading it. But I'm excited to see where this is going to go. I'm hoping it's going to make me think a lot more critically about myself and how I identify and all of this sort of stuff. So I'm very excited to see what this is like. The next book on my top 10 to read list is Foxglove Summer by Ben Aaronovitch. I've mentioned this series of books before because I started reading my way through them last year, but I'm still thoroughly enjoying them. They're excellent. So I definitely want to read this one. I don't know if there's any more. I hope so, because I need them in my life. In a similar vein of just super fun, lovely books that are part of a series that I've been enjoying for a while now, there is The Girl Who Soared Over Fairyland and Cut the Moon in Two by Catherine M. Valenti. This book series, you guys. This book series is so good. I had to tap just so you could know that. The Fairyland books are just utterly delightful. I really like Catherine Valenti's other work as well, but these ones are just pure adorable loveliness. They're just full of such wonderfully sweet ideas and also just really interesting ideas, and I just think they're utterly fantastic and super easy to read because they are maybe aimed at a slightly younger reader, but as an older reader you can also really enjoy them. This is the third in the series. I've also got the fourth in the series, which I'm sort of lumping together with this as a joint number 4 entry because they're just too cute and I cannot handle it. Number 5 is Holding Still for as Long as Possible by Zoe Whittle, which I will admit I don't really know a lot about, but I've wanted to read it for a while because I'm intrigued by it. I think it's like an exploration of what it's like to grow up in now, like this moment with all the technological advances and all the big political changes that have been going on and that sort of thing. And as someone who is growing up in now, I thought that sounded cool. I don't have a lot to say because I don't really know a lot about it because I didn't want to ruin it for myself, and I'm just going to read it and I'm hoping it's going to be interesting and I'm going to think about things and that sort of thing. A book that is not recently published is A Song for Arbonne? I don't know how I'm supposed to say that word, by Guy Gabriel Kay, who specialises in doing words that I don't really know how to pronounce. Tagana? Who knows? I'm pretty sure I've mentioned some Guy Gabriel Kay on this channel before because I absolutely adore him. But I feel like it's been forever since I've read some fantasy. This is the fantasy book that I have set myself to read this coming year because Guy Gabriel Kay has proved himself to me now to be good at both standalone fantasy novels and fantasy series. So I'm just gonna try another one of his. Really? Moving on to poetry, I have The Burial at Seas by Seamus Heaney. I love Seamus Heaney, he's great. I really love his translation of Beowulf. I studied it in university and nearly did my dissertation on it, that's how much I loved it. But I've never really explored much of his other poetry, which I really want to change, so I bought myself this because I do love my classical studies, so I thought the combination of Seamus Heaney and classical studies is something that I really needed to know. Plus, I've made a resolution to try and read more poetry this year because I really got out of the loop of doing that, so this is going to be my first little step back into poetry again. Speaking of poetry, the next book that I set myself to read this year is Anne Carson, Autobiography of Red, which is loosely, I'm holding it under the poetry option, because I gather it's sort of a mix of poetry and prose, sort of more of an epic poem, I think. And I do like me some epic poems, but I haven't really read a lot of modern epic poems. All the epic poems I've read have been like super ancient and old. So I thought, exploring genres that I have not really explored before, I would give it a go. It's about an exploration of this little winged red monster called Geryon? I'm gonna say it like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he escapes into a parallel world of photography, falls in love with Heracles. It all just seems very interesting and kind of weird, and I'm excited to see what it's like. I'm probably do another video that is more coherent once I've read it, because I don't really entirely know what it's going to be like. I just said I would read it, so I am going to. The next book I'm setting myself to read this year is Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. I hope that's pronounced right again. I really don't know how to say these things, and I only realised that when I come to film a YouTube video about them. I went to Edinburgh on holiday at the end of 2015, and I bought myself from an adorable tiny little bookshop one of his poems, and it was really lovely, actually. And I've always heard wonderful things about the letters that he wrote, so I picked this up on a whim after Christmas with my Christmas money, and I really, really want to read it, essentially because his poems were so popular. Like, young people started writing to him about their problems, and this is just a compilation of some of his letters and replies to them, and I just really feel like it's going to help me get a better sense of him as a person. I gather they're beautiful anyway, and then after I read this, I want to then read more of his poetry, slightly more informed about him and that sort of thing. So I'm really excited for this one. I think it's going to be really, really good. Finally, my 10th book that I want to read in 2016 is not one that I actually own yet, but that is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, because Rainbow Rowell, yes. Fanfiction, yes. Rainbow Rowell writing fanfiction about one of her own books, a book that I read and loved. Hell yes. So I need to get my hands on it because I do not own it yet, but as soon as I do, that's absolutely going to be one of the ones that I read this year, because I just need to. I need it in my life. So those are my top 10 books that I'm planning on reading in 2016. I'm hoping that just by setting myself this smaller little goal, no matter where I get with the amount of books I read overall this year, I will have a mini sense of accomplishment at the end of the year from having done this. And I hope it comes across that I'm trying to explore maybe some different genres and different forms of writing than I would automatically go to reading. So I'm trying to mix in a lot more poetry and like the letters, that sort of thing, and just generally expand my reading ever so slightly. I think I'm trying to focus less on the quantity that I read and more on not necessarily the quality, but on just creating more of a different exploration of things. I don't really know. I'm just going to try some new things. I'm feeling very enthused about reading, guys. I just want to read everything, and I need to like slow down and just focus on like one thing at a time. Is there anything that you are particularly looking forward to reading this year? Is there anything that's going to be released this year that you are super excited for? Or have you read any of these top 10 books, and can you like tell me about them in a non-spoilery fashion? That would be great. I hope your 2016 is going super duper well for you so far, and I will see you hopefully next week if I stick to my schedule, which I'm not doing very much. I'll see you when I see you. Have a lovely day. Bye.